Hello everybody, welcome back to the Unversed Podcast. Danny here, and today we're going to be talking about Erased. So Erased is a manga that got an anime adaptation that was pretty popular from what I hear back in, 2016. And then it also got a recent drama adaptation. I think it's on Netflix. I heard that one's not the best version to consume this. But yeah, I don't really know anything coming into Erased, which was quite a big shocker. For one, I thought it'd be longer than just 40, I believe, six chapters. I thought this is or 44 chapters. I thought I was gonna go longer, but written by Sanbei K, and this is a interesting story about our main character. He's an interesting one. Satoru is just your average everyday guy who's working a part-time job, and he's trying to become a mangaka. And he was successful at one point with a video game adaptation, and now he's struggling to get a serialization. He works at a pizza joint, and he has a coworker who's a high school student at the time. She is 17, he is 28. And again, I had no idea where this manga was going, right? I was like, okay, let's see where it goes. It's a seinen-esque manga, so we'll see what kind of dynamics are we going to have with the characters. Is that going to be a big part of it? What's the big deal with what's going on right here? So, reading it, it's like, okay, this is interesting, and then it goes to the point where, yeah, I have this thing called, in my translations, it was rerun, it's revival, where he relives a certain moment in time in between 1 to 5 minutes, I believe. And right off the bat, I was like, wait, what is this? Is this later down the line, I'm like, is this like the butterfly effect? But initially I was like, wait, is this what's it called? That one movie with Nicolas Cage where he could see 1 or 2 minutes into the future, right? And it's not the case. It's just this thing, like he keeps looping into this time frame until he solves whatever is going to happen. And we see that work out. And at first I was like, okay, this is interesting. Is this going to be like an idea for him to draw a manga? Is he going to be just like the Nick Cage movie? Is he going to be hunted down? Like, what is going on with what they're doing with his power? And we get some flashback stuff with him, and his mother gets killed by this serial killer that's been here in this town before. So that was, right off the bat, I was like, whoa, okay. This is getting pretty serious, like detective kind of stuff. All right, I'm for it. Let's check it out. And the further we go, his mother gets killed, sadly, like I said, and he's really trying to go back in time to the point before she died so he can save her. It's one of those points where it's like, well, what's the point of this power if I can't use it when I need to? And eventually it does work, but he goes a little too far. He goes all the way back to his childhood, back in 1988, and this is where we're starting our manga. Essentially, like the main focus of this manga. What a trip! I was not expecting anything like this to happen. I was like, okay. Let's just see where it goes from here. And I saw it go, and I was like, oh wow, this is different. This is interesting. And it's interesting because the main premise of Erased is our main character, Satoru, trying to prevent these future events from happening between these abducted kids and the murders and all this stuff. And he has knowledge from the future, like very vague stuff, but it's mainly just when it happens and where they disappear, essentially. So at one point it's like, man, you don't really need the beginning. You know, at first thought, I'm thinking, yeah, I wouldn't think to have the premise in the beginning, but then it's to build up the fact that his goal is to just save his mother at the end of the day. So that's what we're dealing with, is he's trying to save multiple lives at once to prevent one life from being ended in the present day from where he's at. So there's a lot of stuff going on here. The art style is great for it. It's written very well. A lot of deep stuff going on here. A lot more serious stuff than I anticipated between these elementary school kids, right? They're actually bringing up like some serious topics. The main one is, of course, domestic abuse to a child, and the way they delve into that and trying to prevent it. It's pretty interesting stuff, and it really complements, like the art style really complements with the story, because the way the expressions are drawn, you can really feel the emotions, whether it be negative or positive. So that's a big plus for this. It gets pretty clever towards the end. I do say I wish there was more. That's my only thing with it, is there definitely could have been more, but it did end up pretty nice. We did finally get the resolve, and we see at what cost it gave to our main character by trying to change the future. At one point, I'm fine with the ending of just him, you know, he essentially is back into the present, but it's not his present, and he didn't jump forward to the present in a sense, as his powers would let him. So at one point I'm fine with that, because it does give a happy ending at the end, and you know, we actually get to see everything that goes on. But on the other hand, I would think it would be interesting to see more of a butterfly effect, right? If you remember that Ashton Kutcher movie, that's what I felt like this was happening, because he did fail once, and then he came back to the present, and he was like, no, I need to go back, but how am I going to trigger it? And I did think, is he going to go multiple times back and like try to fix things? That's what I thought was going to happen. See, I think it could have been more essentially interesting if he didn't always have to go back to elementary school, right? If these characters didn't disappear at this time, maybe like there was one in middle school and then one in high school, you know, just kind of jump around and get information like that. But of course, if we're going that route, then that means more chapters, more story planning. You know, this method, I would think, could go easily like 100+ chapters. You know, so it does benefit from the limited time it has to tell the story, because it's just going back to one fixated point, and he's not constantly jumping around back and forth from present to then. So there's that, you know. I did listen to Mother's Basement's video where he compares all three versions of this story with the manga, anime, and Netflix, and like the live action drama. And I would say, yeah, definitely read the manga, because there is some important stuff missed out in the adaptations versus the manga. So definitely, I definitely do recommend this. It is pretty good. I ended up reading it in one night. I was just so enticed by the writing, you know, especially with some twists and turns that pop up in here. Like, I was not expecting it. And I did like how the manga progressed artistically wise, because when we're introduced to our main character, he's an adult, you know, and sure, the way manga go is, you know, you have your art and then it improves as you go later down the line. But I think it really adds an extra layer to the story with the art changing, because when we see our main character at the end of the manga, he does not look like how he did when we first started, right? He's living a different life, a different look on everything pretty much, and this sort of accomplishment that he was missing in his life, right? He's all of a sudden have companions. He has these emotions that he never had before, because he never bothered trying to get to this place that he is at now. And I really think, yeah, the art style really does help with that. So that's a good plus, whether it was intentional or not. right? Because I think it was regardless his art was going to improve, right? It's just a matter of time. The longer you draw these mangas, especially because it's monthly, so you have more time to refine it. But like I said, it's a nice little extra layer if you really want to dig deep into something like this. Strong cast, right? I think the art style really makes these designs pop because it's just a seinen manga, so there's really nothing flashy like DBZ or Fairy Tail or anything like that. So you don't really have a lot of room for the way they dress. I mean, sure, there's a couple distinctions here and there which set it pretty good, I think. And overall, yeah, this is definitely a must read. I mean, I could keep going, but I really don't want to spoil it that much, right? Because it is very plot heavy. There are twists and turns that I'd rather not talk about. Maybe, in a future episode at some point, when everybody else has read it or something, we can come back. Because I know Adam said he's watched it. It's been a while, but he said he's going to check some stuff out here and there. So maybe we'll do a spoiler heavy episode and just talk about these important details. But overall, yeah, I think it is a strong cast. I kind of just wish we saw, I don't know, I think it's fine that it's focused on, Satoru going to the past and we're staying there for a long period of time. Pretty much the whole manga, we're just witnessing just his childhood life and how he's trying to prevent it. And we rarely get him as an adult for the most part. And just think, because, I'm just thinking like when he goes back in time, right, the first time, and then he wakes up when he fails, he's in the same spot he was at, right? And then so the second time he jumped is a very interesting part. Like, what if he came back right there? Like, what is he going to do in the present, and then what are the characters that are helping him going to do? I think those are those type of elements I would like to see. But again, it is the repetitionist. It is laying out the story more to try to balance with the length. So it is a lot more work, and I am satisfied with it at the end. It's just, sometimes there's just some more things that you want with mangas like this. But no, pretty solid, man. I definitely give it a recommendation. I haven't read a seinen in a while. I think so. This is a pretty good refresher for the genre on me anyways. I think I also enjoyed it more by not knowing what it was. Like, sure, I've heard of Erased here and there. I know it was popular at one point. But I never really let me check it out. What's it about? Like, let me skim something or watch a video about it. So I think that really amplified my enjoyment for this story, was like the fact that I really didn't know anything jumping in. Which is what I'm doing for most of these mangas on my list, is like, I'm just like, oh, well, I saw the name, it looked cool, or somebody recommended it to me. I think Miguel had this on a list I looked at. So I was like, yeah, sure, I'll read it. Why not? Let's check it out. It looks good. And he was right. It's one of my favorites so far. I really enjoyed it, especially with it's just so thought-provoking. Which is also another interesting point with our main character Satoru. When we first see him, we don't really get a vibe of what he becomes later down the line when he's devoted into trying to help this girl, Kaya, from not going missing and ended up, being dead in the present. So, he really does grow. It's almost unclear whether or not he grows as a character or this is who he has always been if you put some effort into it, right? Because when we see him as a mangaka, they're just like, oh, this and that. He's like, yeah, whatever, I figured. And then his mom shows up, and then, she's also saying some certain things about him, and it's like, okay, we have a pretty clear picture of who this character is, but then when we see him in his younger body, but still with his adult mind, we see him do things that he was not showing initially, right, in the present day. So I want to say it's him growing as a character, or it's just him in an impossible situation that he has to solve, but it's only he by himself that he can do it as, right? I want to say it's a mix of both. It's him, and it's also him growing. He's like refining himself as a person, right? I think that's the whole point of him traveling back in time and this and that. But yeah, that's the only, it's just such an interesting way to start a story like this, right? Because our main characters, it is teased in the beginning whether or not our main character is by himself with this power or not. But then later down the line, it's like, no, it's just he just happens to have this ability, and you know, he can use it. It happens on accident, but then if he really wants to force it, it'll activate. So it's just, again, like, it's a really interesting way to start this tale of a boy trying to save the lives of these girls. But of course, he has the knowledge of the future. So, and man, like the last like section, like the last quarter, I would say, of this manga is also really good because it changes directions on how he's tackling things because a certain thing happened, like a major event happened. So again, that's very heavy spoiler. You just gotta read it. Just read it. It's really not that long, 44 chapters. It is monthly, so it'll take a little while, but I mean, it took me like half a day if you binge it to finish it. So I definitely, again, recommend it. And with that, I'm going to bring this episode to a close. The next manga, hopefully, I think it's a manhwa. We'll see, because I'm a little wishy-washy on it. I haven't really read the premise or anything, so we'll see next episode if I did that one or if I skipped it. So while we wait for that episode, guys, hop on over to Marvel Talk, man. We're back stronger than ever. We've been dropping like 2-3 episodes a week. We might be slowing down a little bit because there's not a lot of content coming out. But I don't know, Daredevil's popping up soon. And we're getting some set photos here and there. So we might still be popping 2 to 3 a week. So look out for that. And of course, you can always follow us on social media at Unversed Podcast anywhere you go for updates on the new episodes. And you can email us at unversedpodcast@gmail.com if you have any question, comments, concerns. Did you guys read Erased? I would love to know what you guys thought. Because again, it's a thought-provoking manga that I think is what we need more of, right? And you know, it is seinen, so it's like, okay, you're not gonna get this kind of level in a shonen manga. I can understand that to a point. But yeah, without further ado, guys, thanks for listening. As always, remember, we're going to be at LA Comic-Con. It's fast approaching. We're going to be posting on the social media. I'll be cosplaying. Just come say hi if you're going. And it's going to be a great time. And also look out for that episode. So as always, we will talk to you next time.
찬 차라라라라 찬 차라라라라라라라라라라라라라라 찬ジャックが仲間になった。